Spain and the Holy Wars, The Demise of Power, written and read by Sofia Kamal, Hunter Cristoferatos, and Elise Bruce. This novel is dedicated to our high school history class for emphasizing the power of the past on the future. Chapter 1, Introduction. It is not always common knowledge that Spain, a country now known for their tapas, was once the power country of Europe. Having been the first to claim the New World, by 1520 they had conquered most of this new land. From this, they exploited its resources and its people. They acquired an abundance of silver from the mountain of Potosi alone, and even instigated the Columbian trade between Europe, Africa, and the New World. Back in Europe, they were a powerful Catholic country, run by a dominating Habsburg family and acquiring funds from their colonies. They remained prosperous and powerful, but this power did not last forever. How did this mighty country fall, and what did religion have to do with it all? Through the journey of the religious wars, one can analyze the thriving power and its quick loss. Chapter 2, The Inquisition.
From 1478 to 1834, the Spanish Inquisition was a powerful and intimidating judicial institution that was, on the surface, created to combat heresy within Spain. What happened in reality, however, is that the monarchs used the Inquisition to further expand their control through brutal means. During the 13th century, there did exist a medieval Inquisition, but due to the conflicts with the Moors, they were kept at bay in the Iberian Peninsula. It wasn't until the late 15th century that things started to change. Spain was very interested in a religious unity after such a long period of conflict from the Reconquista, and to this end it targeted its fairly large Jewish population. The persecution took an especially ugly turn when King Henry III of Castile passed rulings forcing people to convert to Christianity. Any non-converts would be killed, and the ones that did convert faced a great deal of prejudice. Among the converts were also Marranos, Jewish people who would convert, but practice their original religion in secret. Later, in 1469, Isabella and Ferdinand would openly declare the Jewish people a threat to Christianity as a whole. Eventually, this would lead to Pope Sixtus IV in 1478 issuing a bull authorizing Catholic monarchs to appoint inquisitors, and from there, everything expanded rapidly. Sovereign states would use the Inquisition as a means to further establish their regimes, instead of the religious tools they were made to be. In fact, the first Spanish inquisitors, who were operating out of Seville, proved severe enough for Pope Sixtus to try and intervene, in order to limit the power the Inquisition now wielded. But the Spanish crown was handed an incredible power that it wanted to keep, and, as a result, Pope Sixtus was unable to do much. Pope Sixtus himself was eventually induced in 1483 to allow the naming of an Inquisitor General, which would act as the head of all inquisitors inside Spain. This Grand Inquisitor was able to name deputies to help him, and was able to hear appeals, the deciding of which he was assisted in by a council of 5 members and consultors. These positions of office would be filled after an agreement with both the Grand Inquisitor and the government was reached. After 1534, and the papacy of Clement VII, even priests and high-ranking bishops would find themselves judged by the Inquisition. The first Grand Inquisitor of Spain was a Dominican named Thomas de Torquemada, and his name became synonymous with the brutality and fanaticism of the Inquisition. He would often use torture and confiscation to terrify those he accused. Likely this was allowed due to the judicial procedures at the time being fairly corrupt. The sentencing of any of those accused would take place at the auto de fe, which acted as a very public and very superfluous showing of the Inquisition's power. Thomas de Torquemada alone had an estimated 2,000 people burned at the stake while he was in power. Thomas also pressured Ferdinand and Isabella to pass an edict forcing Jews to either be exiled or killed, and in 1492 that edict came to pass. This led to an astonishing 160,000 people being exiled, never allowed to return to Spain. At this time there was also a cardinal, Francisco Cardinal Jimenez de Cinceros to be exact, that was advocating heavily for the suppression of the Muslim population. This increased exponentially when he was named Grand Inquisitor in 1507, and by 1526, Islam was outlawed and all Muslims were forced to convert.
Spain had its Battle of Lepanto. The Battle of Lepanto proved to be a key engagement between the Ottoman and Habsburg Empire. More than anything, it is a testament of Spain's former glory and military power. On October 7, 1571, the Holy League, led by Don John of Austria, defeated the Ottomans. Following the ascension of Sultan Selim II to the throne of the Ottomans planned to capture Cyprus and move forward in 1568. After the capture of Nicosia, a fleet of Catholic Mediterranean powers felt the need to combat this growing menace by forming the Holy League in 1571, including territories such as Spain, Venice, the Papal States, Genoa, Savoy, and Malta. Don John of Austria set sail with the fleet and 206 galleys and 6 gallasses, but along the way saw the carnage of the Ottomans take over. At the Gulf of Patra, Don John spotted the Ottomans, who under the command of Ali Pasha, and with the assistance of 230 galleys and 56 galleots, had recently came from Lepanto. At this moment they knew they must prepare for battle, and so John took the command of the center, Agostino Barbarigo took the left, Giovanni Andrea Doria took the right, and Marquis de Santa Cruz took the rear. Meanwhile the Ottomans took their own positions for battle, with Ali Pasha leading the center, and the help of both Aluj Ali on the left and Shaluk Bey on the right. And so they jumped into battle. The Holy League sank 2 galleys and disrupted the Ottoman formation as Doria's and Aluj Ali's ships dueled. This disruption allowed the League to capture the Sultana and with great glory kill Ali Pasha. In all their triumph, they beheaded Pasha and displayed his head on a single pike. The bewilderment of seeing their powerful leader conquered and mocked caused the Ottomans to retreat in their loss. While the Holy League lost 13,000 men, they saved close to an equal amount of Christian slaves, captured 130 ships and 3,500 people, and killed 25,000 Ottomans. Spain played a large role in this battle and keeping Islam, the religion of Ottomans, away from the West. This moment not only reinforced the division between Muslims and Catholics in the Mediterranean Sea, but showed the power that Spain truly did possess in the international community and its manifestation within battles. Chapter 4: The Spanish Armada. In contrast with the Battle of Lepanto, the Spanish Armada was a product of Spain's loss of prestige and power. Philip II, married with heirs and an immense debt, ruled over Spain, while Queen Elizabeth I, heirless and unmarried, struggling to keep her throne, ruled over England. England required Spain in order to remain safe against the power of France, but following the death of Henri II and the weakness in French monarchy, England no longer needed this alliance, and so Spain, provoked by England's support for the Dutch rebellions through the Treaty of Norsuk, England's theft and piracy of Spain's riches from Sir Francis Drake's raids, and Spain's desire to convert England to Catholicism, Philip II of Spain sent from Lisbon a great fleet on May 1588, known as the Spanish Armada. The Spanish sent 130 ships and 19,000 soldiers under Duke Medina Sidonia. Duke Medina was an experienced administrator, but had very little experience at sea. They aimed to clear the Strait of Dover, cross the southeast England, and dethrone Elizabeth. The English fleet was under the command of Howard, 2nd Baron Howard of Effington, who was equally as experienced as Medina, but a much stronger leader. Second in command was Sir Francis Drake, and while England was much less soldiers, they compensated by having more artillery to attack at long range. And so, both equipped, the battles began. The British first saw the Armada at Lizard Point on July 29th, and were able to take the upwind side. From July 31st to August 8th, they moved from Plymouth to Portland Bill to Isle of Wight, the British harassing the Spanish without getting any direct shots and remaining unscathed. On August 6th, both parties reached the Strait of Dover and anchored their ships. The news reached Flanders, but taking too long to prepare, they were not able to return and help the Spanish. The battle erupts and the defeat came at midnight on August 7th. The British launched 7 ships to cut the Spanish's cables, cause the Spanish to lose their anchor, and move out to sea to avoid getting burnt. As the Spanish lost their formation and remained powerless due to their unmounted guns and lack of training, the British moved in. The British soon lost their ammunition and followed Spain at a distance, as Spain attempted to retreat. With heavy casualties, fate shows mercy on Spain as the wind pushes Spain upwards, northward around Scotland to return home. Unfortunately, the passage in cold autumn weather proved to be fatal. Chapter 5: 80 Years' War.
The 80 Years' War touched every part of the European continent in some way or another, and Spain is no different. Spain was always embroiled in near total warfare, and this constant battle all but bankrupted them, restricting their ability to deal with any future problems. This includes the Dutch revolt that occurred when the many people there were angry at the king for focusing solely on Spanish needs, and not theirs, too. This led to the Calvinism movement, a form of Protestantism, taking place in Dutch territory, and, as such, a greater anger over the lack of reform. The first rebellions to spring up were fairly small, mostly people refusing to acknowledge the Spanish governess Margaret de Parma as their ruler. Though none of these early revolts were victorious, Spain decided to institute a much more harsh governor called Fernando Alvarez de Toledo, the third Duke of Alba. Alvarez had some 3,000 rebels put to death and caused both sides to polarize to an even larger extent. Alvarez was opposed by a landowner named William the Silent, who owned more Dutch land than anyone else besides King Philip II. William refused to swear to the Duke's oath of allegiance, and also refused to take up arms for either side, hence his moniker, the Silent. This changes, however, when the Duke has his son imprisoned to change William's mind, though not in the way he hopes, as William flees, promising revenge on the Spanish territories. From here, he becomes a key figurehead of the rebellion, organizing up to 3 raids and organizing the Dutch into an effective army, starting an all-out war. The Dutch army, under his command, was able to take many territories from the Spanish and brought them to a stalemate in Holland. Unfortunately, William became so integral to the rebels that after his assassination, many fled the country for a different life, and those that stayed found themselves back on the verge of being stomped out. Luckily, the rebels found more support in Queen Elizabeth of England. This help turned out to be more or less what won them the rebellion, not because it was anything to pull them out of their desperate situation, but because it caused King Philip II to get angry at England and pour all his money into the ill-fated Spanish Armada. This causes his bankruptcy, and with no money he is unable to continue the fight against the rebels. Spain's fight, indeed all their fights, turned to the defensive. The north of the Rhine was basically all Dutch now, and France took the opportunity to declare war on Spain as well. This new enemy makes the Spanish much more willing to give Dutch territory, the territory that would make up the Dutch Netherlands. Along with this, the Spanish, Dutch, and French signed the Pax Hispanica, or the 12-year truce. The truce does not last, however, as when Spain gains a little bit of its power back in 1622, it returns to try and conquer the Dutch. The Dutch, with their newfound independence, are able to hold them back, however. So Philip creates a second armada of 20,000 men. This goes as poorly as the first one, unfortunately. Eventually, internal conflicts caused the Spanish to reshift their focus from the Netherlands, and on 1648, the Dutch win their independence.
Chapter 6. The 30-Year War.
Chapter 6. Spain and the Religious Wars. One wouldn't normally think throw someone out a window after a disagreement, yet in this case that's exactly what happened and led to the great European power Spain to be at war with many other nations from 1618 to 1648. The defenestration of Prague can be said to have started the 30 Years' War, when Roman Catholic officials closed down the Protestant churches in Bohemia, violating the laws set in place for religious liberty by the Letter of Majesty. An assembly of Protestants was held at Prague, and the imperial regents William Slavata and Yaroslav Martinik were found guilty of violation of the Letter of Majesty, and thus were thrown from a window. This was a sign that the Bohemians had begun a revolt against Habsburg Emperor Ferdinand II and started the 30 Years' War. During this time, Bohemia reached out to other Protestant regions for help, and Ferdinand called for the German Catholics, Spain, and the papacy. Unfortunately for the Protestants, they were defeated on White Mountain, a mountain just outside of Prague, in 1620. This defeat led to having almost no Protestantism in Habsburg lands. And as if that wasn't enough, 6 years later, armies led by Albrecht von Wallenstein overran most of Protestant Germany. Shortly after, Ferdinand issued the Edict of Restitution to reclaim the Catholic lands that had been secularized by Protestant rulers. However, all was not lost for the Protestants. The movement was saved by Swedish military aid, led by Gustavus Adolphus in 1630, and they also had financial help from France, who just wanted Spain to calm down already, and Germany. Success continued for the Protestants until the Spanish army stepped in and again drove them from southern Germany in 1634. This success for the Spanish triggered France, who declared war on Spain in 1635, and then on the emperor himself the following year, for they feared encirclement from Spain, seeing as how they had the Spanish to one side, Austrian Habsburgs to the other side, and the Spanish Netherlands to the north. The war now became a power struggle between France, Spain, and Austria, but it was fought mostly on German lands. This power struggle lasted a while, but France's eventual victory at Roquefort led the Spanish to agree to end the fighting, and that in turn led to the Peace of Westphalia and its 2 treaties. Spain had been on the steady decline ever since the war ended.
Chapter 7. The Treaty of Westphalia.
The Treaty of Westphalia marked the end of the 30 Years' War in Europe, and in reality, it signified Spain's demise as the world power. The treaty itself was a combination of 2 treaties, the Treaty of Münster, which was between the Holy Roman Emperor and the King of France, and the Treaty of Osnabrück, which was between the Emperor and the King of Sweden. The treaty proclaimed peace for all parties involved and amnesty for them all as well, meaning nobody could hold the actions of any group against them. The biggest effect the treaty had, however, was the installation of religious equality. This could be Spain's biggest loss, as arguably they were fighting since day one against any divergence from the Catholic faith. In Section 3 of the treaty, it is declared all religions, institutions, and people may have the religion they want, and can face no discrimination in doing so. Section 5 reconfirms the Augsburg Treaty for religious freedom, while Section 7 acts as an appendix asserting that Calvinists are included in this freedom, along with the Protestants and Catholics. Sections 16 and 17 state that, after all parties sign, hostilities will cease, and unneeded soldiers will be disbanded, leaving only enough for security, and the rules written within will be ratified as law in all domains. The disbanding of unneeded armies is especially likely to be directly targeted at Spain, aiming to stop them from becoming the nuisance that they were before. Section 31 goes over the rights of Protestants in Catholic territories, again, aiming to stop Spain from unfair treatment of non-Catholics. And Section 34 goes into religious minority tolerations. Spain became the world power through their seeking of a religious unity, and this treaty acts as a sort of failure for Spain's beliefs, a signifier that they lost the war and must now deal with the consequences.
Chapter 8 Conclusion. Overall, as we come to the end of the story, it's evident that Spain's loss of power came from a variety of prominent milestones, people, and moments. Each one of the battles and religious wars further decimated Spain's character and title. While Spain will never restore its former glory and power, many positive aspects came from the bloodshed that was the religious wars. The Treaty of Westphalia brought an advancement in the international community and its ability to resolve issues through dialogue, which is summarized through the simple quote, "The following articles have been agreed on and consented to, and the same run thus." Though this treaty brought the prosperity of a new age, it also brought the demise of a once prosperous nation. This account of history is a human testament to the danger of one's own hubris and the power of changing times. Thank you for listening. For more information and more books, follow our Twitter, Facebook, or website. Thank you.